Greetings, Giorgio. Sit here before me. There is no time to find somewhere else to stay.
You are about to enter the domains of dread. Be wary of the fog that now gathers around you. That mist, it just changes things. Anybody who has traveled through Ravenloft just accepts that. Timelines shift. Events are multiple choice. Creatures you know can twist and morph. The future can reach back into the past and affect the very reality that spawned it. The mist can affect even you, the outsider, the one who sees as Madame Eva does. By the end of this series of collected works, the undeniable truth of that fact will have you questioning everything that you believe you have experienced and looking to others for commiseration. This is Explorations, a journey in 5 parts that will alter the way you experience our shared domain. To this end, our focus must remain steadfast on the details, lest we get distracted and lose ourselves along the way. If this is your first time experiencing this journey, please do so in order. Jumping in the middle can only lead to more confusion and distortion. If you do find yourself lost, look to Madame Eva as a guidepost. She will always hold the answers. Each one of you who walks this path does so on your own. The only place you will be able to gather to share your thoughts will be where you begin and where you end up. And you will never know how many other travelers are on this journey with you. Hold in your mind that nothing you see or hear will be by chance. To really experience the full weight of the mist effect, it will be important to pay attention to all that is being presented. You never know when that future will make its presence felt. With that out of the way, it's only appropriate that we begin our journey of discovery where our collective feet are planted. Ravenloft, 5th edition. More specifically, how Van Richten and his guide are lying to you. Time is a river, carrying forward the traditions of the past. No tradition has been greeted with more apprehension in our corner of the world than the change in editions. And it's no secret that the current edition of Ravenloft has been met with mixed reviews. The changes that Van Richten Guide brought with it were a considerable departure from what was presented in the last official edition. The scribes of the setting called it a hard reboot, pulling names and places from the old lore that it wanted to reuse, scrubbing others, splitting apart the lands of the core, returning every domain to an Isle of Dread. And much like the current residents of the domain, the readers of the book are quick to accept that this is the way the lands have always been. But to us who know, or at least believe, in the malleability of the mist, nothing could be further from the truth. Ravenloft, both as a land and a concept, has always been subject to the whims of its Dark Lords, both in-game and in the writer's room. Those of us who see as Madame Eva does tell a different truth. A darker, more nefarious reality has been hidden from your view. No, what you see now before you is the result of the Dark Power's attempt to exert further control over the souls that inhabit the domains of dread, the living and the dead. It's almost as if the powers that be figured out that by letting the domains of the world have open access to each other, variables beyond their control could be created. Alliances could be formed, pacts made, and powerful magics that no one Dark Lord had access to could be attained by just a few powerful beings working in conjunction. And what is presented to us now as history
is merely the living reaction from a world seeking to gain control over what had gotten out of hand. But the history that was so dangerous to the dark powers never really was erased. It remains intact. In fact, it's right here, hiding in plain sight. I could pick several examples of the forgotten past, leaching through the cracks of this newly forged history, but it really all hinges on one character presented in this book. A character easily passed over, tucked into the Mist Wanderers NPC section of the book. Firin Zalhonen. But who is he? And why do I believe that this almost footnote of a character may be the person most responsible for how Ravenloft exists in its current form? Let's take a minute. Look, as Madame Eva does, and peek into the past. Zalhonen is presented as a wandering scholar, an arrogant, pragmatic genius, one of the most utterly ruthless intellects to walk through the mist, an aristocrat that claims a noble pedigree, haunted by the dreams of a life where he could have ruled as a wizard king. But Firin chose a different path. His quest was to study inscrutable prophecies and legends of conjunctions, eager to test the boundaries of reality. With the help of Madame Eva and her Vistani agents, he would visit accursed sites while traveling through the lands of the mist, soaking up all the knowledge that was hidden from lesser men. The price of the Elder of Vistana's cooperation would be paid with Zalhonen's gathered secrets. All this to advance his goal of leaving the demiplane for what he considered the true realities beyond. But nowhere in the book does it plainly state who this man really is, and why it is so important to the current fabric of the demiplane, and I believe that that is by design. Van Richten is lying to you. Hints at his true identity can be found in his list of eccentricities. A loathing for Darkhan, personal hatred for Strahd, a fear that if he were to enter the mist unguided, he would never escape. Further clues can be found in the land itself. Darkhan is described as a domain in the process of an ongoing apocalypse. The mist had become predatory. An enigma known as a shroud is slowly dissolving swaths of matter from this once rolling landscape. Once kept at the borders of the domain, they now flow freely, slowly reclaiming everything in their path. A slow-motion apocalypse. In addition to the shroud, Castle Avernus is now frozen in a moment of destruction, destroyed in a torrent of otherworldly flame, an explosion that froze partway through the blast. An event known as the Hour of Ascension is said to be the catalyst for the transformation. While the particulars are hidden from our memory, the effects are all too unambiguous. Whatever took place freed the domain's Dark Lord Aslan and left Darkhan without a ruler. The citizens of Darkhan have precious little recollection of what life was like under its previous Dark Lord. Some people don't even believe the Shroud exists. Those odd features of the mist? They've always been that way. No maps exist in the book of a non-fractured Darkhan. It's as if something has reached back into the past and fundamentally changed the future. Or someone. Another important name in the Darkhan section of the book is Darkalis Rex. Without much fanfare, we are told that Rex was the domain's first king. After the Hour of Ascension, Cardina Artazaz, a thrice reincarnated elder mystic, received a prophetic vision of the end of the world. Determined to stave off destruction, she summoned the spirit of the wizard king that ruled prior to Aslan. Darkalis was brought back in the form of a necrocore, a being formed of living blood. It exists in a state of liquid limbo, waiting to gain enough power to return to a living body. Now, these concepts and characters are interesting on their own. However, their inclusion in a book that is supposed to be a reboot tells a different story. Van Richten is lying to you. This story is a direct continuation. And Zalhunan's past is history's linchpin. If we exist as Madame Eva does, we have the power to look back into all pasts, learn what has been hidden from us. Who was Zalhunan before wandering the mist? And how did that come to shape the future that we see before us? Zalhunan was born on Orith in the earldom of Nurl, the second of 3 sons. Overlooked by his parents, he demonstrated keen intelligence juxtaposed with a distaste for his fellow man. His father was a strict ruler whose superstitions would lead to bans against magic. With rebellion in his heart, the young Zalhunan would enter the mage underworld as a student of the wizard Quantarius. The only member of the family Fearin loved without reservation was his brother, Eric. While Eric was quick to forgive and slow to anger, Fearin was the complete opposite. He cared not for the price of his thirst for knowledge, and his indifference would cost him dearly. At the age of 15, Fearin called forth a demon that broke loose from his control, and it slew his brother Eric. His father would place the blame solely on Quintaris, his son's teacher, expelling the sage from the city. Fearin chose his studies over family and followed him. Under his expelled master, he attained the mastery of magics unattainable to normal humans. He could read others' minds completely, learning spells with just a thought, and he even extended his own life by draining the vitality of his enemies. But the important lessons, the ones that should have been learned from his family tragedies, slipped through his grasp. 30 years of decline will be suffered by Nurl at the hands of Fearin's brother, made ruler of the kingdom after his father's death. Gluttony would be his undoing, and Nurl's wayward son would be called home to assume the seat of power under his new title, the Wizard King, or Azal Lan. During his reign, not only would Nurl experience a reverse in its decline, but magic would once again become an important part of Nurl's daily life. His rule was marked by prosperity and growth. The byproduct of his expansions, violence and dissent from those who opposed him. Feeling the life-extending spells starting to fail and needing to secure an heir, he took a wife at age 60. It would take 18 years for this loveless marriage to produce a son. Rumor had it that his wife would use magical wards to delay conception, making her uterus a rocky crag where Fearin's seed could lay no perch for nearly 2 decades. Perhaps the magics ended up poisoning her. As she lay dying during childbirth, she used her last breaths to push out a curse on the Zalhunan name. The elderly leader would call his son Eric after his brother, but it would be more than just a name they had in common. Kindness and generosity would belong to Eric as well. These traits would not allow the young man to follow in his father's harsh footsteps. Fearin would only see this as weakness. A single moment would come to define Aslan's rule. When Eric was caught freeing a political prisoner, he was faced with a choice: pardon his son or execute him. Hands that were once to hold this newborn son would swing the sword that sent him back to his mother. The message to his people would be clear. The law was the law. Aslan was a strict but fair ruler. However, as a father, the deed split him. Unsure of his own actions, left without an heir, He became obsessed with either gaining eternal life or bringing his son back to the land of the living. The answer would come in the form of a nameless dark force, presenting him with the secret of lichdom. Aslan did not hesitate. Shedding his mortality, he would rule for another 60 years. Nurl would rise to great heights in the Flyness. So powerful were his armies and his traders that he begun to infringe on the territories of the surrounding kingdoms. Many would send assassins and armies, but nobody could seem to topple him. The downfall would come at the hands of a minor tribe he had defeated many years prior, with the help of the long reach of the dark powers. Aslan received a tip about a magical spell that allowed true life to be restored to a long dead corpse. He also learned the location of the mage who had possessed it. Blinded by the hope of restoring his son, he set out with a small cadre of guards and was almost immediately ambushed by a group of mercenaries. A dense, impenetrable fog rose up out of nowhere. In the confusion, he fled deeper and deeper into its clutches. He lost all sense of time and place as the world disappeared around him. Nurl, once again, would be left without a king. Time got fuzzy for Fearon. He would spend countless hours or days chasing voices through the mist, sounds just out of his reach, catching shadowy figures off his periphery, never being able to make out who or what was with him, swearing if he was ever to get out, servant would be his new title. When the mist finally rescinded, he found himself on the border of a vast kingdom, a traveling wizard no longer bound by the constraints of rule. That land was a place called Darkon. He would wander around for quite some time, listening to the people tell tales of the undead creature that ruled the land from the depths of his castle Avernus, a wizard king named Darkalis. Fearon would seek out the depraved tyrant, making his way through the castle Avernus, seeking to make up for past mistakes. His plan was to stand up for the people, slay the creature, and restore order. But things were not as they seemed, and Zalhona would not realize his mistake till it was all too late. After confronting and defeating the king, a flood of repressed memories came back to him. Darkon was not his first stop upon entering that fog in Nurl. The mist had played one more cruel trick on him, and erased a very crucial time in Aslan's existence from the powerful Lich's mind. So when first exiting the fog after fleeing Nurl, Aslan had lived in Barovia. Finding the place absolutely repugnant, he immediately began working on a way to escape his new prison. Barovia's Dark Lord would become aware of the powerful creature setting up his experiments in the long-abandoned manor. The former ruler of Nurl would introduce himself with the title customary his position. However, Strahd, not speaking his language, would not understand the subtle difference. Aslan would be this creature's new name. The two would grow to despise yet respect each other, and although neither was trusted, they would work together to escape their mutual prison. Together, they created the apparatus, a giant machine with two massive globes on either side, tubes and copper rods spread across its width and length. A device that was able to separate out the good and evil parts of a person. On a stormy night, in a manor called Griffin Hill, in a town called Mordenshire, in a land called Morton, their experiments ended up splitting Strahd into two separate people. The alchemist and the creature. The land will respond in kind. The failed experiment had led Mordenshire dragged into Ravenloft. The mist had thwarted their efforts. they do have a way of changing things. Believing Strahd's connection to the land was too strong for him to escape at all, Fearin abandoned him and entered the mist. Aslan's fate would mirror that of Strahd's. What went into the mist isn't what came out. When he emerged on Darkon's border, all the time spent in Barovia was stripped from his memory. Entering Domain had split his mind, much like the alchemist and the creature. Darkalis was the essence of his undead energy, and Fearin what was left of his humanity. But by destroying Darkalis, he re-merged with his undead essence. Aslan was filled with rage at knowing he had lost the best chance at escape. He settled into his rule of Darkon, but he would constantly, through his machinations, test the boundaries of the mist, and devise ever more elaborate plans to escape for good. So, here we are now, both Fearin and Darkalis appearing in this book. The memory of who they were not only erased from their mind, but from ours as well. We don't get a good sense of how that happened. Not this time. You could assume that the Hour of Ascension is the reason we find ourselves here. But I think that name exists to throw us off the trail. The seed for this incident that caused the change was planted back in 3rd edition. This incident was called the Time of Unparalleled Darkness. The Hour of Ascension. Castle Avernus hanging in a state of suspended explosion. The Shroud. These are all symptoms of Aslan bringing about the Time of Unparalleled Darkness. Somehow splitting himself apart again, or reaching back through time and preventing himself from facing Darkalis. That is wisely left up for debate. The exact details are never made known to us, but whatever he did obliterated the bonds for all of Ravenloft, sending each domain hurling into the mist. The connections to the core all gone. Histories of the domains completely rewritten, people gone, never having existed. Darkon itself was affected the worst, left only with the slimmest trace of a Dark Lord. It is unable to be completely wiped out of existence. Instead, it rots away, being reclaimed by the mist, inches at a time, like the flesh of a lich rots off its bones over the centuries. And the peddler of the big lie in this book, Van Richten, well, he finds himself again in the land of the unliving, ready to tell you all his secrets, guide you through the mist, but even he has fallen prey to the machinations of the real lichpin of the setting. Fearin Zalhonen, Wizard King, Aslan. This NPC in the Mist Wanderer section of the book is the catalyst for the changes in the new timeline. All these characters' inclusions, as they are presented now, are another in a series of threads to pull at for scholars of the setting. New versions of the bloodlines with little secrets buried and still remaining unexplored. This is the truth that has been hidden from you. The Dark Lords who authored this book want you to believe that this is the way that things always been, that this is a reboot, but not so fast. Ravenloft and its histories are malleable. Future events can reach into the past, change things without anybody noticing, leaving everyone involved none the wiser. But we know better. We see as Madame Eva does. The past is never rewritten, only obfuscated due to the machinations of the Dark Lords. And what has come before will always be waiting there to be rediscovered, no matter where you are in your timeline. So what is to be made of Zalhonen? Villain, antihero, lost soul, filthy lich? Let your opinion be heard below, but remember, on this journey through the mist, someone's always watching. Lost in the last upheaval was the story of a young thief from Kresk, who on her quest for eternal beauty crossed the Elder Vistana Madame Eva. And as a result, their destinies would be forever entwined. Jacqueline Montari, a rare beauty whose face could launch 1,000 ships. The mist will carry us now to meet her as we continue on this journey of exploration. You mean a lot to me. Don't get lost in the mist.